Okay, let's take this quick poll here. You either agree, strongly agree, disagree, or strongly disagree with the following statements. First one, smoking cigarettes or an argila does not lead to dangerous ailments. Ailments are diseases. Okay, probably strongly disagree. We all know that smoking leads to a lot of diseases such as respiratory diseases, heart diseases, clogged arteries, cancer, different types of cancer. Statement 2, smoking cigarettes or an argila does not lead to death. Of course, it leads to death. How? Because of the dangerous ailments that are conceived. Statement 3, smoking cigarettes or an argila has no relation with the increase in the world's mortality rate. Mortality means death rate. I strongly disagree, of course, because the more smokers there are, the more deaths there are due to diseases related to smoking. Finally, addicting to cigarettes or an argila can be controlled. Well, it can be controlled, of course, it can be controlled. I agree with that. Okay. Strongly disagree. I'm not sure about that. You guys might have different opinions, but generally I agree. It can be controlled, of course. Some people will need the treatment and therapy in order to get rid of it, but of course it can be done. We know many people who were able to quit smoking and whose health became much better. Moving on, now let's listen to our new lesson, Global Tobacco Death Toll Still Climbing. Okay, as we see from the title, it means that the number, toll means number. The number of people who are dying due to tobacco is still on the increase. I will start reading you the selection and please listen intently. Paragraph 1. Paris, the percentage of men and women who use tobacco every day has dropped in most nations since 1990, but the total number of smokers and tobacco-related deaths has increased, a consortium of researchers reported Thursday. Mortality, and as we said, mortality means the death rate, could rise even further as a major tobacco companies aggressively target new markets, especially in the developing world. They warned in a major study published in the medical journal The Lancet. So as we can conclude from paragraph 1, even though smoking is on the decrease, it dropped in so many nations, it is on the increase in other nations being targeted by tobacco companies aggressively in order to attract them to smoke more. Paragraph 2, 1 in 4 men and 1 in 20 women smoked daily in 2015, daily, according to the Global Burden of Diseases report, compiled by hundreds of scientists. That was a significant drop compared to 25 years earlier when 1 in 3 men and 1 in 12 women lit up every day. So there is a major drop here. But the number of deaths attributed to tobacco, which topped 6.4 million, look at these startling statistics, 6.4 million in 2015, went up by 4.7%. Okay, so how is it that even though the number of smokers in some countries is decreasing, deaths associated with smoking are increasing? Due to the expanding world population, the report found. Okay, this is because the number of people in the world are increasing. So obviously the number of smokers is also increasing. Therefore, the deaths related to smoking will be increasing too. Paragraph 3, sadly, all those deaths were preventable. Senior author Emanuela Gakidu from the Institute for Health Metrics and Evaluation at the University of Washington told AFP. The deaths of smoking causes 1 in 10 deaths worldwide. 1 in 10 deaths is caused by smoking. This is a lot, meaning 10% of the people who die because of smoking. Half of them in just 4 countries. Half of them in just China, India, United States, and Russia, the big 4. Together with Indonesia, Bangladesh, the Philippines, Japan, Brazil, and Germany, they account for fully 2/3 of global tobacco use. Smoking remains the second largest risk factor for early death and disability, after high blood pressure, Gakidu said. Okay, second largest risk factor for early death and disability. Okay, disability, of course, resulting from strokes, brain strokes that could occur due to clogged arteries and veins. Paragraph 5. Some countries have, seen sharp. Okay, we will continue that after we take a look at this image here. Smokers don't just die of cancer. It's not only cancer, guys. Many other serious diseases are linked to smoking, as the image below shows. Take a look at this. From the beginning, 66% of people who died due to the tuberculosis, it's a disease, contagious disease in the lungs, where people start coughing a lot and they cough up blood, highly contagious. Where smokers, 66% who died of tuberculosis were smokers. 60% of people who lost their lives to respiratory diseases were smokers. 53% of stroke deaths were also people who smoked. 52% of people who died due to the heart disease were smokers. 13% of tuberculosis victims were women who smoked. 14% who died due to respiratory diseases were smokers. 8% of women who died of stroke were smokers. 7% of heart disease victims were smokers. So apart from cancer, a lot of diseases are due to cancer. Okay, reductions in smoking driven by some combination of higher taxes. This is in developed countries. Education campaigns, package warnings, and programs to help people kick the nicotine habit. Brazil was among the leaders over the 25 period examined, with the percentage of daily smokers dropping from 29% to 12%, less than half among men, and 19 to 8% among women, half. Okay. Paragraph 6, but Indonesia, Bangladesh, and the Philippines, where 47, 38, and 35% of men who smoke respectively, saw no change. No change, guys. Okay, those are developing countries. From 1990 to 2015, which is a 25-year period. Okay, the study was done for a 25-year period. In Russia, where tobacco control policies were not put into place until 2014, the percentage of women who smoke climbed by more than 4% over the same period. Similar trends are emerging in much of Africa, the author cautioned. Both Russians and Africans were big eaters of tobacco, he commented. Paragraph 7, the World Health Organization warns that the number of men and women smoking in sub-Saharan Africa will go up 50% by 2025. 50%. Okay? Compared to 2010 level. Future mortality in low and middle income countries is likely to be huge, of course, because there's an increase in tobacco consumption. There will be an increase in mortality rate due to tobacco consumption. John Britton from the University of Nottingham's UK Centre for Tobacco and Alcohol Studies wrote in a comment also in The Lancet. Paragraph 8, responsibility for the global tobacco epidemic. Notice how here the author talked about it as if it were an epidemic, okay? Highly spreading and contagious disease, lies mainly with a handful of multinational companies. So according to the author, who's responsible? Those big companies based in rich countries, he said. The modern tobacco industry profits from enslaving children and young people in poor countries into lifelong addiction. It's targeting this vulnerable or weak group, and ultimately taking their lives for profit, he said. The global response, including a 180-nation tobacco control treaty linked in 2005, has focused mostly on users and not the supply, he added. Finally, paragraph 9, the WHO, meaning World Health Organization, has noted that tobacco is the only legal drug that kills many of its users when used exactly as intended by the manufacturers. It is estimated that half of daily smokers will die prematurely. Guys, premature means before their time, okay, when they're still young, due to their tobacco habit, unless they quit, of course. Failure to stop the epidemic means that scarce resources will be used to treat tobacco-caused problems such as cardiovascular diseases, cancers, and chronic respiratory diseases, Gakidu said. Chronic means a disease that remains with a person, okay? It takes time to heal, or it even remains with the person forever until that person dies. Okay, let's move on to the first part of questions, which is the comprehension question. A, answer each of the below questions in 2 to 4 sentences using your own words. Number 1, in reference to the study published in The Lancet revealed in paragraph 1, displayed here for you, identify the reason that could stand behind the rise of mortality rate resulting from smoking. We talked about how, as major tobacco companies aggressively target new markets, especially in the developing world, where maybe the rules and laws related to smoking are still lax, okay, no strict controls. Question number 2, based on paragraph 2 displayed here too, what do the numbers indicate about smoking in the present and 25% earlier? It indicates that there's a significant drop, where the author gave some very important statistics here, okay? So the reason that could stand behind the rise of mortality rate resulting from smoking is that major tobacco companies aggressively target new markets, especially in the developing world. Based on paragraph 2, what do the numbers indicate about smoking in the present and 25 years later? The numbers indicate in the present and 25 years later, earlier, that the number of smokers dropped. However, the number of deaths related to smoking increased by 4.7% over the same period due to, of course, the expanding world population. Okay? Question number 3, according to paragraph 2 here, state the reason behind the rise in the smoking death toll despite the decrease in the number of smokers. Okay? Okay, again, the expanding world population. Number 4, mention 2 impacts of tobacco use revealed in paragraph 4. Okay, impacts, effects revealed or showed in paragraph 4. Smoking causes 1 in 10 deaths worldwide, in China, India, United States, and Russia, and then the other countries mentioned. Smoking remains the second largest risk factor for early death and disability after high blood pressure, Gakidu said. So, those are the answers. Question number 7, according to what is mentioned in paragraph 6, why has the smoking rate in Russia and much of Africa increased? Let's take a look here. Why has it increased? In Russia, where tobacco control policies were not put in place until 2014, the percentage of women who smoke climbed by more than 40%, so now we know. And are emerging in similar trends are emerging in much of Africa, the author cautioned. Both Russians and Africans were big eaters of tobacco. Eaters here means consumers, of course. 8, as indicated in paragraph 8 displayed here, why does John Britton blame the multinational tobacco companies? Why does he blame them? Okay. The modern tobacco industry or business profits from enslaving children and young people in poor countries into a lifelong addiction, okay, taking their lives for profit, okay? So, Number 7, the smoking rate in Russia and much of Africa increased because tobacco control policies were not put into place until 2014. As a result, the percentage of women who smoke in these two areas of the world climbed by more than 4% over the same period. Number 8, John Britton blames the multinational tobacco companies because the modern tobacco industry profits from enslaving children and young people in poor countries into a lifelong addiction and ultimately taking their lives for profit, for money, he said. Now we come to the organizational skills questions, very important, okay? First one, identify 3 functions and purposes the introductory paragraph states serves in relation to the text. I did not ask for the type of introduction. I'm asking you what purpose or purposes does it serve. 3, okay? Let's take a look at it. It's giving us percentage of men and women who use tobacco every day, and it's telling us that it has dropped over a period of 25 years. It's talking about how mortality rate could rise because tobacco companies are aggressively targeting new markets in developing countries. So what is it doing? Okay, it's introducing the text. It started with an interesting fact, interesting statistic to attract our attention, introduce the text, okay, and arouse our curiosity. Second one, why does the writer rely on numbers and statistics in paragraphs 2, 3, and 4? This is one standard answer. The author relies on numbers and statistics in paragraphs 2, 3, and 4, okay, to gain or to achieve credibility, authenticity, objectivity, and accuracy. This is one standard answer for any such question, okay? First, one purpose is to introduce the main idea of the text, which is about tobacco use in the world and its contribution to the increase in the rate of mortality. This is one purpose. Another purpose is to attract the reader's attention and arouse their interest to read more about the issue, to get more ideas, especially after knowing that the decrease in the number of smokers did not lead to the decrease in that toll. Toll means number. A third purpose is to provide some background information about tobacco use in the world, mainly how tobacco companies target children and the poor. And here, the writer relies on numbers and statistics in paragraphs 2, 3, 4 to achieve accuracy, credibility, authenticity, and objectivity. You can write any 3 of those. You don't have to write 4. Okay? Moving on with the organizational skills questions. Explain the thematic relationship that exists between paragraph 5 and 6. Whenever I say between the paragraphs and not inside one paragraph, you need to take a look at the first part of the second paragraph. Okay? But don't just rely on that. It's a hint, okay? However, you need to read carefully. Let's take a look. Paragraph 5. Some countries have seen sharp reductions in smoking driven by some combination of higher taxes, etc. We're talking about countries like Brazil where smoking has decreased a lot. Paragraph 6. But Indonesia, Bangladesh, and the Philippines saw no change. So obviously, here the word but has a significance. The relationship between those two paragraphs is one of idea contrast. The ideas are different here, or contrasting. 6. Identify and explain the figure of speech used in paragraph 6. What can you infer from it? Okay, it's somewhere towards the end where they're talking about how Russians, okay, and Africans are eating tobacco, okay? So the thematic relationship written here that exists between paragraphs 5 and 6 is that of idea contrast, okay? In paragraph 5, the writer mentions that in some countries like Brazil, the number of smokers dropped sharply because of higher taxes, education campaigns, package warnings, and programs to help people kick the nicotine habit. However, paragraph 6 mentions the opposite in the other countries. For instance, blah, 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 saw no change in the rate of smokers despite taking similar measures. You can also add here the word, the author began paragraph 6 with the word but, okay? And this was an indicator that The relationship between the two paragraphs was one of idea contrast. Okay? Question 6. Identify and explain the figure of speech used in paragraph 6. What can you infer or conclude or deduce from it? There is a metaphor in paragraph 6. Okay? There is a metaphor in paragraph 6. Both Russians and Africans were big eaters of tobacco. Okay, there is an indirect comparison between tobacco and food. They don't eat tobacco, they consume it. In Russia and Africa, tobacco is described as food for people. Food for people. Of course, it's not food, it's a figure of speech. It's metaphorically speaking. Okay, let's move on with another organizational skill question. Number 7, what two adjectives best describe the writer's tone in paragraphs 7 and 8? Explain. Let's take a look at paragraph 7. The author's the World Health Organization warns. You need to be careful with the words. Okay, warns that the number of men and women in sub-Saharan Africa will go up 50%. Already we see warning and alarming. Future mortality in low and middle income countries is likely to be huge. Warning, alarming. Okay. Paragraph 8, responsibility. So here he's blaming, okay, criticizing, laying the blame for the global tobacco epidemic lies mainly with a handful of multinational companies. He's criticizing, of course, the modern tobacco industry profits from enslaving children and young people in poor countries, etc. Number 8, smokers, parents, and educators are 3 groups of readers who might be interested in the above text. We told you the groups who might be interested. Now you have to tell us what their interest is, okay? Let's see. First one, the tone in paragraph 7 and 8 is both warning and critical. As we said, it is warning because WHO, or World Health Organization, showed that the number of men and women smoking in sub-Saharan Africa will go up by 50% by 2025 compared to 2010 levels. There is also some warning about the mortality rate, etc. in low-income countries. The tone can also be described as critical. There is a blame. Isn't he blaming multinational companies based in rich countries? They are enslaving children and making them become addicted. And ultimately, they're taking their lives just for profit. Okay. Number 8, smokers. Why would smokers be interested? Smokers might find interest in the text because they can recognize the multi-dangers tobacco smoking might lead them into. They can see how tobacco companies cheat them just for profit. Parents might also be interested because they can find material in the text to convince their children through. The number of death toll, the diseases, the side effects, etc. can be good reason for parents to offer their children in their debate against smoking. Educators meaning teachers, okay, at school might be concerned for they can know how to instruct their students and provide them with the proper advice and guidance against smoking, of course. Okay, now we come to our vocabulary part. Use contextual clues to figure out the meaning of each of the following words, bold typed in the text, then use them to complete each of the sentences that follow. Okay, we already discussed them while we were reading. Aggressively, when you do something in an aggressive or violent way. Attributed, when you attribute a certain characteristic to someone. Reductions, of course, decreases. Prematurely, before time. Chronic, something that remains for a long time. Okay, chron, when you see chron, it means time, or chrono, it means time. Okay, number 1, the death of Jack at age 25, this is your clue, stunned his family and friends. Of course, it's going to be premature. Okay, under the impact of having a strict diet, Salma became and started shouting. Okay, she became what? Aggressive. Okay, here you need to, by the way, here you need to make necessary changes. Okay, started shouting. Number 3, relying on some regular healthy food may, okay, reduce the risk of diseases. Okay, for gaining extra weight as a result of unhealthy food, my obese, overly fat neighbor suffers from arthritis, which is a disease that remains a lot of time and sometimes forever with a person. Chronic, okay, premature, aggressive, reduce, and chronic. Remember, here you had to make necessary changes. Most of the time on the test, I will not ask you to make necessary changes. Okay, those are the exercises in the book. On the tests, you will not generally be asked to do so. Now, finally, pronoun reference. I displayed the paragraphs here for you so that we can work on them together. They, in paragraph 1, let's take a look at it. You need to look before and you need to look after. Mortality could rise even further as major tobacco companies aggressively target new markets, especially in the developing world. They warned in a major study. They're talking about the people who made the studies. Okay? They, in paragraph 4, China, India, the United States, and Russia, together with Indonesia, Bangladesh, the Philippines, Japan, Brazil, and Germany, they account for fully 2/3 of global tobacco use. This is the whole thing. They refers to all those countries, and you need to list all of them. Okay? Paragraph 6 first. He, in paragraph 6, there it is. Okay, 4%. Similar trends are emerging in much of Africa, the author cautioned. Both Russians and Africans were big eaters of tobacco. He commented, Gakidu, who is the author of this very important 25-year study. Paragraph 8 now. There in paragraph 8. Okay, here it is. The modern tobacco industry profits from enslaving children and young people in poor countries into lifelong addiction and ultimately taking their lives. Okay, children, okay, and young people in poor countries. Finally, 5, there in paragraph 9, there it is. It is estimated that half of daily smokers will die prematurely due to their tobacco habit. Okay, smokers, daily smokers. Okay, there are the answers displayed in front of you. Number 1, the researchers, people who did the study. Number 2, the countries. 3, Gakidu, the author of the research. There, young people and children in poor countries. There, finally, paragraph 9 refers to daily smokers.